Usually I'm saying happy Friday, Steve Sipple, but happy Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're coming to you a little earlier this week because we got to get on the road. Welcome to another edition of Husker Online Headline. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, getting you all the way up to kickoff for Thursday's game at Minnesota as we go through what we think are the 5 biggest headlines of the week. And a reminder, Sip, we will be on after the game for the long-awaited Husker Online post-game show. We'll go live right here on the YouTube channel. You can watch us live probably around midnight, but we'll have the repost on YouTube and Husker Online as well as our podcast channel. So if you want to hear what we have to say after the game, we'll be with you a little over 2 hours after the game comes to a close from Minneapolis. But let's get right to it. Headline number 1, big stage for Nebraska. Not just Nebraska football on Fox Thursday night as they take on Minnesota, but Husker volleyball. I think we got to start with this. A possible U.S. or even world record might go down for the largest crowd ever to attend a women's sporting event at Memorial Stadium. The eyes of the world will be on Nebraska as over 90,000 fans will be watching Nebraska volleyball play UNO. Then there'll be a concert, Sip, that follows that game. And what a way to kind of kick off this big week for Nebraska.
Yeah, and we've seen the setup over there at Memorial Stadium, and it's quite I'll call it a spectacle. There it is. Good job, Megan. You know what? The sightlines aren't that bad. I mean, you'll be able to watch a volleyball match if that's what you're interested in. Now, some people are pretty far away, and they're just there not to follow every point of the match, right? They're just there to say they were there, right? So, yeah, it's very unique. It's a very unique occurrence, and there's not many places in the world that you could pull this off. So, hopefully, here's the other thing: the weather cooperated. It's supposed to be in that low 80s. Wind shouldn't be a major factor. I've seen where there could be gusts in the 20 range, but 2 to 20, 2 miles per hour to 20.
It's pretty enclosed.
Yeah, well, easy there.
I mean, there's walls around it.
Yeah, but you know how the wind swirls in that stadium. And ask any kicker that's ever kicked for Nebraska. That wind it swirls down there. But anyway, I don't think it'll be a big factor.
Yeah, you're right about that. Actually, I was talking to one of the former kickers, Grant Schumacher, and he said that there was a study done that Nebraska's Memorial Stadium is one of the hardest stadiums to kick and punt in because of the way the wind plays.
Right. It's odd. It's sort of unpredictable. But anyway, look at that. Just look what we're dealing with there. It's super, I don't know. It's unique. It's just, when I look at it, all I think is unique. That's really unique.
You mentioned the weather. I was told that if it was, like in the hundreds, like we had seen, it would have been hard to play this thing because not just for the safety of the crowd, but the floor. That floor would almost turn into a hot grill.
Ooh, yeah.
Imagine the hot turf underneath,
right,
with a floor.
Right.
It'd just be a hamburger patty on there cooking.
Yeah, it'd be tough for the women playing. They've just caught a really. I just feel like they caught a big break. Like the volleyball gods cooperated here because the weather. You couldn't ask for much better weather in August. 80s with not much wind, no threat of rain. Come on, that's a good deal.
Yeah, and I have to think Trev Alberts, when they came up with this idea, they knew it would be a big crowd, but nobody could have predicted we're going to get this type of deal. Nobody.
Well, it'll be enormous. And then that precedes a big game in Minneapolis.
Now, on this extra area around, do you think they're going to have seats?
I have no idea
on that. I just wonder how many more people they're going to bring on the field. We know around the court there's going to be seats and things, but I'm talking on the turf because to go for that record, it's going to have to be like the Garth Brooks show where they just filled the field up with people. Like I'm just going to be curious what the actual field's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Chick-fil-A sandwiches will be served in the stadium. They're bringing in some new vendors. Omaha Steaks is also going to be involved. So Trev Alberts testing the waters on a few new vendors, not for football season, but just at least for this volleyball match.
Yeah, then there'll be another big stage on Thursday night in Minneapolis. So that's, it's going to be an epic 2 days.
And we learned with Rule, he likes to get to his road games a lot earlier. He told us yesterday he's a guy that likes to be there by 3. That they kind of build their trip to arrive at 3. So they'll leave. I think they'll kind of head to the airport at 1, leave at 2 or whatever, and then be in Minneapolis at the hotel at 3
On Thursday or Wednesday?
on game day.
On game day.
Wednesday.
That's the day
The travel day. The travel day.
Yeah.
So they'll get to town pretty early, and they will go see a movie, Steve Sipple. I know that was a big pressing debate.
I was just wondering. People ask me all the time, do they still do that? So they are going to a movie.
They're going to go to a movie.
I don't know if they'll do that for home games, but they're doing it for this game.
Yeah, the road. Well, they're on the road again the next week too. I mean,
Right.
what a crazy way to start your regime, to be on the road 2 straight games in a row.
Well, yes. I mean, it is kind of crazy. It's really compelling, though. These are compelling, extremely compelling games. I mean, Rule starting his tenure at Nebraska off at Minnesota with a Big Ten game against a pretty good team. I mean, it's not a great Minnesota team, but it looks like a pretty good Minnesota team. And I don't know. Well, I don't want to say I don't know. I'm really getting the sense now from Rule, listening to him closely, that Rule is like, he doesn't say it, but he says enough. And most of what he has said in recent days leads me to believe he is expecting a close game, like a close. If you listen to him today, for instance, it's evident to me he's expecting a tough, grinded out game where they're trading blows. Bad analogy here, boxing analogy, but they're trading blows, and then you just hope to win it in the late stages. And I think that's what I think he thinks that he has a team that's going to go in and take it down to the wire. If you're a Nebraska fan, that's got to be exciting. I'm excited.
I think people forget that Nebraska had this team beat a year ago. I mean,
it did.
And that was a better Minnesota team.
It had Mo Ibrahim, arguably the best running back in the conference. Take your pick. I mean, the big horse at Wisconsin, or Blake Corum, or Mo Ibrahim. But yeah, then what they did was, I don't know if you remember, Sean, but they just started going to Ibrahim. They just made it an Ibrahim game in the second half.
And he leaned on him.
Yeah, Nebraska, it wasn't like Minnesota pulled away. They just they had Ibrahim. Now they don't have Ibrahim. What they have is really good receivers, but I don't mind that because Nebraska's secondary is its strength. Now, you're not going to get a lot of sacks against Minnesota because of the way they play. They'll get the ball out quick. They'll max protect on play action, and they'll run RPOs. It's hard to get sacks. We got to get pressure.
I'll tell you what I'm just most excited, though, about this week. It's just going to showcase what Nebraska is all about between the volleyball crowd and the 90+ thousand, Matt Rule on Fox. But there's going to be a lot of Nebraska fans in that stadium. Just talked to one of my friends, Mitch, who's going up, and I go, a lot of people go. He's like, oh yeah, I've talked to a ton of people that are going. Like,
yeah, there'll be a lot.
There are a lot of people that are saying, let's load up the car. It's a long weekend. Let's go up there. So I'm excited to see that crowd, and it is a gold out. So you will know who the red is in that stadium.
That'll be a great scene. That'll be a great college football scene on a Thursday night. Joe Klatt, Gus Johnson, red and gold in the stands, a night game. Come on. This is fun.
All right.
I hope Nebraska players have fun with it.
Before we get to headline number 2, this show and segment brought to you by CHI Health in Lincoln here on 40th. And I want to tell you about their clinic here on 40th and Yankee Hill Road. I'm actually a patient there myself, and it is a brand new building, first class facility. That's where we go and see our regular doctors at, get all of our annual tests, blood work done there. But it's just a one-stop shop for everything. They have aftercare availability. You can just walk in from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. So that includes the weekends.
Wow.
To get checked up at. They have a pharmacy on site as well. So you can get your prescription filled right when you're in the building. That's CHI Health. Particularly their clinic on 40 and Yankee Hill Road. They have tons of other things. You can get x-rays done there. Orthopedic consultations, physical therapy. So check it out. Visit chihealth.com/Yankee Hill. That's 40th and Yankee Hill Road. And thanks again to CHI Health for being a sponsor this football season on the Husker Online show. But let's get on, Sipple, to headline number 2. Arik Gilbert arrested on Tuesday night And it really, I don't want to say closes the book on the story, but it kind of does at this point. We don't have the official word on his status moving forward. But Arik Gilbert Monday night,
yeah.
And was booked Tuesday morning.
Right. Arrested Monday night.
Broke into a vape shop and was held by Lincoln police. Took about $1,600 of things from the store, broke the front window with a brick, and then caused about $650 of damage. But Matt Rule, they're waiting on that waiver from Gilbert. Obviously, I think that's a moot point at this time.
I think so. Now, Matt Rule, he addressed the media on Tuesday, and he just didn't know much about this. He was informed of the situation via phone calls. He walked onto the practice field. So you don't know exactly. I don't know the future. I don't know what they'll decide. I think this is largely out of Matt Rule's hands, though. This will go to the AD's office. And yeah, I mean, you feel for everybody involved. Nebraska has done a lot to help Arik Gilbert as he tries to get a waiver, as he tries to, play football this year. But again, looks like that ship is going to sail now. What's in Arik Gilbert's future? I don't know. I don't think it's too early to say.
Yeah, and obviously Nebraska has a lot of resources here to assist athletes with issues. And I think Matt Rule felt like he was on the right path. He had a very good spring. He had a very good summer, but things recently had kind of taken a turn.
Camp wasn't great.
And camp wasn't. He had was
for
working,
Arik.
And he was working scout team too. So even if he had the waiver and this arrest didn't happen, he was not going to travel to Minnesota.
Yeah, that's important to note. He had been, I'm going to say, demoted to the scout team. He wasn't going to be a factor. Now this was the head coach on Tuesday, making sure that he said the words, this is not going to be a distraction for our team. I don't know about that. The kids are going to talk about it. It's a pretty big deal around the football complex. I hope it's not. I mean, you don't know, Sean. In our shoes, we're not with the team, every hour of the day. I've talked to some football guys who say, yeah, that's simple. It will be a distraction. That's a big deal. I don't know. I'm not convinced.
I mean, he was kind of isolated. He wasn't a part of the top units. He was working scout teams.
So maybe it won't be a big deal. So
he wasn't going to travel.
Right. So the tight ends, Thomas Fedoni, Borkercher, Luke Lindenmeyer, and Janiron Bonner. Yeah, and Janiron Bonner. They're pretty well stocked there, especially with the top two. And that's, let's face it, it's going to be Fedoni and Borkercher most of the time. The vast majority of the time, it'll be Fedoni and Borkercher.
Yeah, and the waiver thing, you got the sense that it probably, the chances of it happening didn't seem likely anyway. I mean, it felt like this waiver wasn't going to happen.
It did start to feel that way.
The way it got to this point, it just didn't have a great feel where it was heading before we even knew what happened with the arrest. So the other thing we learned, Sip, from Matt Rule on Tuesday was Tristan Alvano will start a kicker.
Tristan Alvano, the true freshman from Omaha West Side, won a battle which Rule characterized as a close battle with Timmy Bleekrode, who was the kicker last year and made 9 of 12 kicks. And, he was close to 10 of 12. If you make 10 of 12, that's really good. 9 of 12 is good. So Alvano, Sean, come on, you follow this stuff closer than I do. He's maybe the best high school kicker in Nebraska football history.
You could make a case. Alex Henry and Brett Maher and Greg Zerloin all would like to say hello in the discussion.
Hello.
They all had very good careers.
Right.
They maybe didn't have
the numbers,
the development and the numbers that Alvano got access to. Now, I will say Maher was a really developed high school kicker. He had worked a lot with Chris Brown and did a lot of training coming up the ranks, but kickers now do a lot more than those kickers did. Like Alex Henry was a soccer player that kicked. Yeah. It ended up being one of the best in program's history. But Alvano, I'm not surprised. The leg talent that he's had. I can remember when he first became on the radar as a recruit, I sent a message to somebody at Nebraska. I'm like, this guy's the real deal. Chris Brown said, like, Sean, this is the best kicker I've seen come out of Nebraska since I've been living here. I mean,
Okay,
and
there you go.
Chris Brown's son was on the team at Westside.
Okay. So, yeah, he made 16 field goals, Sean, as a senior at Westside, which is the most in a season in the history of Nebraska high school football. It gets my attention. He made 119 of 120 PAT attempts, extra points in high school. 119 and 120 is good. I mean, that's excellent.
He kicked off the ground in high school too. It wasn't on a tee box. He made 5 kicks in the state title game. Bleak Road made 5 in Memorial Stadium all season.
There you go. So including a 45-yard game winner. And he was, as a junior, Alvano was 11 of 14 on field goals. And the key is what you always hear from people who see practice is it's the ball sounds different coming off his foot. He can boom it. So yeah, Alvano, he was in their last major scrimmage, their final one, he was with the first team. So when you say it's not a surprise, I totally agree. It's not really a surprise. It would have been a surprise if he would have went up there and said Bleak Road. I think we would have been like, wonder what happened to Alvano,
Somebody
kind of that way.
I mean, the leg talent, there's a huge difference. I mean, the ball just comes off his foot. And you mentioned he missed some kicks in high school. One of the advantages in Nebraska high school football is when you miss a field goal, the ball's not placed from the spot where you kick it. It goes to the 20.
Okay.
So in Nebraska high school football, when you have a guy like him, you can be pretty aggressive and say, let's try a 55-yarder. If we miss it, the ball's on the 20. It's almost like a punt, or it's a touchback. But if you make it, you get points. If you don't, they get the ball on the 20.
A lot of people that are watching will wonder, okay, well, what do you guys think about a true freshman going on the road in a Big Ten game in his first go round? Well, Matt Rule had a pretty good answer to that. He said, we send people his age overseas to go to war. That's what Rule said. And he said, look, this is a Nebraska kicker. He's a collegiate kicker now. He's not at Westside. He's a Nebraska Cornhusker kicker. So that answers that question.
All right. Before we move into headline number 3, this show and segment of Husker on the Headlines brought to you by Bauer Underground, another one of our new sponsors here for the football season. Bauer Underground serves as support for local contractors and utility companies within the state of Nebraska. Bauer Underground Inc. gives 100% to assure quality control for their customers and has excellent management skills to supervise each and every job that they contract for. The company and its employees are accustomed to deadline pressures on construction jobs and take tremendous pride in meeting the deadline requirements while maintaining excellent workmanship on each job. Strategy is at the heart of what they do. For more than 25 years, the reputation has been built on these basic principles: quality workmanship, on-time job completion, hiring and retaining high-quality personnel, utilizing the latest earth-moving techniques, and maintaining safety for their customers and employees. We'll have a lot more coming from Bauer throughout the season, Sip.
Okay.
We're excited to be taking them out. By the way, you got to watch Stu Bauer's son, Rowdy Bauer, is the star running back for the Norfolk Panther football team. Had a great opener. So we'll be keeping our eyes on Rowdy Bauer as well. Once again, thanking our sponsor, Bauer Underground. They have office locations in Lincoln, Omaha, Kearney, and in Norfolk. All right, let's move it on to headline number 3.
Okay.
What will this Husker offensive line look like in the opener? Will we see an improved offensive line for Nebraska?
Well, I think one thing you're going to see, Sean, is they're going to lean hard on it in the run game. I think that's what we're going to see from Nebraska this season. A more dedicated effort to lean on those big boys in the run game. Lean on opponents. It's a big, strong offensive line. It's pass blocking has been an issue. I don't think Nebraska is going to be they're going to send Sims on 35 drop back passes this year. I think it'll be I think they're really going to try to run. Now it's hard. How many teams, Sean, do you know of that just say, okay, we're going to run it at you? It's not hard to do. There's not that many.
Wants to be able to do that.
Well, but not many people can. So can this line do that? Can it get a consistent push? I'm not saying Minnesota is Georgia. Minnesota's defense is not Georgia, but it's pretty good. It's big in the interior, big and thick in the interior, long, and good on the edges. It'll be tough to run on them.
My thing, can they develop a scheme that keeps defenses off balance that will complement this line? I mean, last year, the way they ran the ball, it didn't really help the line. They did a lot of things with that line. I mean, think about some of the stuff they did last year. They would do a tackle over where they'd bring Bryce Benhart over to the left side and they put Casey Thompson in a 7-step drop. I mean, just things that were not going to help this line.
Right. And well, Mark Whipple didn't care. I mean,
he was coach of the New England Patriots.
Right.
Sometimes.
Yeah. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that protect it. His thing was just protect. Well, when they didn't protect well, he just said the same thing, protect. Just didn't go that well. He was, what I'm suggesting, Sean, is he was stubborn. So yeah, it'll look different. It's going to look different. The offense is going to look different. It's going to look different because they're going to try to run it. Rule has said we're going to do whatever we have to do, and it's not going to always be simple. They'll do what they have to do: inside zone, outside zone, power, counter. He'll just do what he has to do it. Now, will they be able to? My God, it's interesting. I mean, they're gonna start that big number 22 back there, Gabe Ervin, and that first couple series are going to be fascinating to watch. Can they move the line of scrimmage? Is it going to be 2nd and 8 or is it going to be 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5? That's what you watch for. Does he get any daylight at all early? It'll be hard because you know how these games go. Minnesota's going to be whipped into a frenzy on defense. I think Rule's very patient. He's going to be very patient. What you see, we saw it back in the Osborne era. Defenses come out, they're high flying. Nebraska doesn't get much. Even in the great days, they didn't always run it that well early in games. I can remember watching with my dad going, oh, God, not getting much. Pretty soon, though, second quarter. Oh, okay.
1 yard, 3 yards.
Okay. Now they're getting 5 and 6. Okay. Now it looks like the dam's going to break, and it would. I don't think we're going to see that. But Sean, if we're sitting up there going, oh, 2nd and 9 again, 2nd and 9.
Second and predictable.
Yeah, it's trouble. That's what we got. I think the offensive line will be better, but I know you and I know me, we're going to be watching those tackles and pass protection.
Well, and if it doesn't work, the traditional running game, how much are they going to have to go to that Jeff Sims running game? And that's the one, the college, like Rick Neuheisel says this all the time on his radio show. The advantage of the college game is the QB run game because you're playing with a numbers advantage. It's 6 on 7 people on 6. You got 6 blockers on 6 tacklers and 1 ball carrier. So that's where the quarterback comes into play. If they can't run it consistently, traditionally, how much will they have to go to Sims to open some things up?
Well, that's a big question. And then the other part of that discussion, that quarterback run discussion, is just, okay, Sims drops back, receiver 1's covered, receivers 2 covered, take off. Just take off. I think you're going to see that. That's going to be a kind of a part of the offense.
But get out of bounds or take the hit is the question.
That's the question. But I don't mind the discussion too much because he's going to be dangerous in those situations. If you're a defensive coordinator, you're looking at that saying, God dang it, we're a man. They're going to get manned up a lot because you're going to be able to man those Nebraska receivers. You'll man up on them. But you know what happens? They run down the field with their back to the quarterback. There could be good coverage, and he just finds an opening and goes. And Sean, he will go for a while because he runs like a tailback.
Well, and that's where Casey last year, he could run, but it was like watching your kid run across a busy street. You just kind of
yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
You're like, oh, he's gonna, he can get across. Oh, right. Shit. Right. Maybe he won't be able to make it. He's not going to make it across the street. Oh God.
Analogy. Oh yeah. Casey I think most Nebraska fans understand by this point. Casey don't run it like this guy. This guy can run. Casey wasn't very fast.
There'd be times where you're like, go.
Yeah.
Because, we're so used to Martinez, the Martinez's and Tommy Armstrong's last few years where you saw that patch of grass go. And Casey that wasn't what he was built to do. Mm-hmm. He had his own strengths.
And he was really accurate downfield thrower. He was accurate. He wasn't always accurate across the passing game as a whole, but he really could throw it downfield. And his completion percentage was good, but man, he didn't just so people understand, this guy runs it. This guy's like Gale Sayers compared to Casey Thompson.
He's at least a low 4.6, if not a high 4.5 40.
Yeah, and he's 6'4", 225.
So when he gets hit, he's going to fly forward. It's not going to be a fall back type of deal. He's going to get yards forward on hits.
Yeah, that's something I just know this. I always try to put my feet in the shoes of the defensive coordinator, and it would be a bear dealing with this guy. Nebraska's offense isn't great. It's not. And they don't have a lot of explosion, but this guy's explosive.
And their offensive line last year really struggled. I mean, we can't really losing Cam Jurgens, Nuri Newelli. I was talking to a former Husker player, and he goes, Sean, I don't think people realize, he played on the lines before, how much Cam Jurgens helped maybe cover up the year before. Like, they weren't great when Jurgens was there as a line, but he still covered up a lot of deficiencies.
Yeah, and you're right about Newelli. He's maybe their most talented offensive lineman. Nordine. I mean, you could make that argument.
And Piper might be their most consistent.
Yeah. So, not having Newelli last year, along with Cam Jurgens' loss, that was big.
This game, though, for Bryce Benhart, Minnesota native. You got Omar Brown, Minnesota native. Emmett Johnson. There's three Minnesota natives. This is the first time I can really remember Nebraska's played in Minnesota in the Big Ten, where there's actually been some key guys on the team from Minnesota. So there'll be a little bit of juice in some of these kids.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of juice in Omar Brown. Robin talked about that earlier in the week. And you think Benhart is an interesting guy to me because he's got a really hard edge to him. You want a guy like that. If you meet him, you want him to succeed. He has the sort of mentality that you like. He's got to move his feet. he's got to move his feet better.
All right, before we get into headline 4, excited to announce another new partnership here on the show for the season. We're partnered now with Underdog Fantasy. We decided to partner with Underdog because they are the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and it's also the fastest growing app in the industry. Underdog Fantasy has a lot to offer, including their Pick'em games. In Pick'em, you pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. It's also easy to play. Just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can win 20 times your money if you go 5 for 5 on those picks.
I'll be done.
They also have Best Ball Mania. If you think you know football, you've got to check this one out, Sip. This year's Best Ball Mania has $15 million in total prizes for grabs, with the winner taking home $3 million. So sign up with promo code Husker and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with my promo code Husker to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. You must be 18 and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org. Or let's move it into headline number 4. We kind of touched on this, but let's go back to Jeff Sims. What are you expecting to see from Jeff Sims, Steve Sipple, in his first career start? We've kind of heard a lot of folk tales, a lot of camp tales about him as a thrower. We know this offensive line could have some limitations. We know that the receiving group is not really a stocked group. So there's a lot of things that make you wonder, what will this first outing from Jeff Sims look like?
Oh, it's really hard to say, except what we've said, which is expect a few big runs. I would expect that. I expect him to get loose. And that Sean, I'm just going to say, that's going to be a big part of the offense. Okay. Now, what will his accuracy be like? I think his accuracy during this month, we'll say, not just camp, this month has been good. Not perfect. It certainly wasn't where they wanted it in the first 4 or 5 days. And then I think it according to Marcus Satterfield, it evened out. What you hope, if you're a Nebraska fan, you see is calm. You hope that he's poised and the operation works well, that there's not a lot of procedural problems like they had in one of the scrimmages. That's not all on the quarterback, but let's face it. I mean, a lot of it kind of comes back to him. You want a smooth operator out there. You don't want to see palms up. You don't want to see fidgety. You want to see smooth. We've seen a lot of smooth. We saw Casey Thompson smooth operator. Did you ever worry about Casey flaking out?
No.
Never. You didn't really worry about the operation with Casey.
Well, Jeff Sims has started more games than Casey Thompson.
Yeah, he's 23 starts.
He's a veteran. I mean, he's played.
Yeah.
I mean, Nebraska in the spring had 2 quarterbacks with over 20 Power 5 starts each, which is almost unheard of.
Yeah, I think he has 23 starts, Jeff Sims. So, yeah, I expect to see poise. I don't expect to see great accuracy. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple turnovers. Wouldn't be surprised.
Can they find a deep shot? And who's that going to be?
Well, I think it'd be a freshman. That's what I think.
So you don't think Billy Kemp's a deep shot?
We have this discussion all the time.
He's your Wandale, basically.
He is going to work the middle of the field. He's the underneath stuff. I think what you're looking at is you got to find a deep threat, and I think it'd be a freshman like Jalen Lloyd or Malachi Coleman. Send them deep, and then at least even if it's not complete, if it's not a completed ball, at least the defense knows that's possible. And those other guys, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, Bullock, Kemp, can work the underneath a little bit better. I think you're going to see a lot of short passes, Sean.
How about Bullock getting the scholarship this week, joining his brother? And I think Matt Rule would say is like, you probably didn't have a scholarship to give to John Bullock, but they had to. I mean, if you want to keep the credibility of what this walk-on program is, I mean, you got a guy starting the opener as a walk-on.
Yeah, you got to give him a scholarship.
I mean, if you're like, yeah, we're going to give like third string guys that aren't playing cars and apartments, but you're going to get nothing as a starter. I mean,
right.
The credibility of the whole thing goes to hell at that point.
Yeah. The Bullock family. Wow. I mean, think about the Bullock family. They have 2 starters. Not now. This is where you
a black shirt and the starting receiver.
This is where you come in. I mean, I'm not a very good historian. How often has that happened?
Well, the Long brothers,
yeah.
Spencer and Jake,
yeah,
they were walk-ons from Elkhorn. Spencer got a scholarship as a sophomore.
And both started, right?
Yeah, and Jake got a scholarship as a senior tight end.
Yeah. Peter brothers, obviously.
I mean, they came in as scholarship guys. The Rude brothers came in.
Yeah, I'm not talking scholarship or I'm not necessarily
brothers.
I'm not making the distinction. I don't do that, by the way. I'm not a big like he's a scholarship guy, I'm not that guy, Sean. If you're a player, you're a player.
Well, the Rude brothers would be there's 2 sets of Rude brothers.
Yeah. Yeah, there were. But
Tom and his brother.
Did Barrett and his brother play together?
Yeah, 1 year.
1 year. Okay. See, you're good at this.
Tom and I talked about this years ago in the first book I did, and there was a play where they both were out there together.
Okay.
And you know how Tom Rude, he's just pretty even keel, and he goes, I gotta admit, that was pretty special.
Yeah.
You know, like seeing, think about their great grandfather was Clarence Swanson.
Yeah.
Who was a Hall of Fame member for Nebraska, played. I mean, the Rude family history to Nebraska football goes back over 100 years.
And Tom was a great player. I mean, he was an NFL player for years. So no, but this is what a moment for this family, the Bullock family, to have 2 starters, and they're both going to be critical in this game. Critical. Is John, is John ready? You're asking him a lot. You're asking a lot of him here. This was a nickel player last year who never played a regular down. Now he's starting.
These are 2 guys that were kind of casualties of the COVID recruiting era too. I mean, they just, particularly Alex. I mean, I was going back and reading my notes, like, he had a phenomenal senior year. Phenomenal.
You loved him. I know. I remember that.
I mean, we went because Nebraska wasn't playing that 2020. I watched him 3 times.
You liked him.
And every time I'm like, God, what am I missing here? Like, he makes interceptions, touchdowns, every game I'm at. And finally he got his chance. I ran into a former Husker player that knew him too. And he was like, Sean, he goes, he's a scholarship player. Like,
didn't get one though.
He got screwed. I mean, because he didn't have camps, and South Dakota State gave him like probably a partial. I think it would have been. I don't think it was a full boat.
John didn't have much either.
No, and I just think you fell victim to the system. Like they're not the tallest. And they're at tough positions to get scholarships at. So it worked out. I mean, you just don't see it where kids for a receiver that's a walk on. To get an opportunity like this is hard.
John Bullock starting this game and as a black shirt, largely, or at least in part, because Nick Henrich is ailing. We don't know exactly what his health status is. From what I've heard, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Nick Henrich, I don't think this is a long-term situation.
No, I mean, he could play in this game. We'll find out. And
do you think he could play?
Well, how about the new availability report that's going to be released?
Yeah, tell people about that.
So at 5 p.m. on Thursday, the Big Ten is going to require you 2 hours before kickoff to release a quote availability report, essentially a gambler's report, is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, to let the gambling agencies know who's playing and not playing. But I think coaches would tell you, like, the gambler people already know.
Right. So I think it's at least 2 hours before. So they could release it at 4, 3.
I get the sense the rule's going to wait till 5.
Wait till 5. I do too. I do too.
Keith Mann will be up there or whoever and just hit send at 5.
And I will tell you that Rule I don't think he likes this.
Because he dealt with it in the NFL. And I mean, in the NFL, if you were dishonest, you'd get fined.
Yeah. 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 So listen, some of this is just, some of it's a proactive move by the Big Ten to head off the possibility of gamblers getting to kids and asking them for information, getting to coaches and asking them for information. I think you're suggesting that already happens.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Babe in the Woods.
I mean,
are you gonna give me the Babe in the Woods?
Those type of gambler guys know all that stuff already.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what it takes? All it takes is one person.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I hear you. So I don't know. The Big Ten's the only conference doing it, right? Brian Kelly at LSU is sort of going rogue and doing it on his own, just to be proactive. Like I said, the Big Ten's doing.
They weren't doing it at Iowa and Iowa State.
They needed to, apparently. I don't know what the hell to say about that. Those kids at Iowa and Iowa State gambling on their own games, that's taboo. That's called taboo. That eats away at the credibility of your sport. You better watch it. If you're a leader of this sport, don't shrug your shoulders on that. That erodes credibility. When stuff comes up, kicker slides one right on a potential game winner, slides one right. People are going to ask questions sometimes.
Well, think what it did to Pete Rose. One of the greatest baseball players ever to play the game is blackballed.
Yeah.
I mean, what's different about these situations?
I don't think anything, except people are going to say it's more, but Sean Sip, it's more pervasive now. Gambling's more pervasive. It's more accepted. Okay. I don't want to hear too much about that. It's about the integrity and the credibility of the sport. I'm amazed how much I hear that. Like, come on, Sip. As long as they're not betting against their own team, which has happened. It happened at Iowa. There's kids betting against their team
under their parents' name or their aunt's name,
friend. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to sound like I'm on a high horse. I just want to give voice to sort of this protection of the game notion.
The good thing about the state of Nebraska, though, is you can't do it in the state on your phone. Like, Iowa's a legal state where you can place bets on your phone. So, like, if you wanted to place a bet on your phone into the casino in Council Bluffs, you would have to drive over the river to a gas station or something, place that bet on your phone in the parking lot and drive back.
So if you were going to do it in Lincoln, you'd have to go straight to like Warhorse.
Yeah, you'd go into Warhorse.
Yeah.
And
the casino.
In the casino, you'd physically have to do it in person.
Okay. Well, we don't play those games.
And Grand Island's got theirs going. Columbus is building a big Harrah's. Horseman's Park will have a casino. I mean, within a year or two, these casinos will be very prevalent. I mean, they already are, but they're going to be big.
And I want to be clear on something. I'm not anti-gambling at all. But when it comes to student athletes betting on their own school, yeah, you got to draw the line. So good on was it the Iowa Criminal Investigation Division, whatever it is, and some district attorneys in the state of Iowa going after that. I'm fine with that.
All right, let's close up on headline 5. We'll get our first look at the Tony White 3-3-5 defense. We got a lot of 3-3-5 experts in the state of Nebraska, but no one's actually seen it. Sip will see it live. Finally, Thursday, I'm optimistic about what this unit's going to be. I think there's a lot of veteran leadership there that showed in the single-digit numbers. I mean, there's 8 of the 10 numbers are defensive players, but then you've got other players like Chief Borders, like MJ Sherman, that aren't in single-digit numbers. Blaze Gunnarsson, Cam Lenhart. I mean, this is a pretty good group of players right now in defense, and I'm optimistic what this unit could be in 2020.
Well, it is a unique defense, and I'm not going to portray myself as an expert on it schematically, except and I know that it's caused confusion for Nebraska's offense, which sees it on a daily basis. So that's a good sign, because I do think it can cause confusion, if only because it's pretty unique. They will bring people from surprising places sometimes, bring people into the backfield from surprising places. I like the talent's pretty good here. You just wonder how they're going to hold up front. Robinson and Nash Hutmacher have had excellent off seasons. They are bona fide leaders, both of them. Part of leadership, though, a big part of leadership is performance. So they got to make plays now. It's time for Robinson to be a difference-making type big man, and I think Nash could be that too. But Robinson seems to me to have NFL type talent. But we haven't seen much of it. He has 4 career sacks. One occurred against Indiana just because nobody blocked him. So you want to see more from him. That other spot up front is going to be Blaze Gunnarsson or Cam Lenhart, who are in pretty much a dead heat. Now Gunnarsson got the black shirt, 4th-year sophomore. Now, Sean, you got to watch him close. He's never really been in this position.
He's been hurt almost every year since high school.
Yeah, 4th-year sophomore. He's been hurt. He's never been in a situation where, okay, now you're the dude. You're the dude. You got to make plays. And they'll probably go after him a little bit. And you wonder how he'll hold up. But if he doesn't hold up, they'll go quick, I imagine, to Lenhart.
When you have to think that these D linemen up front, those 3 guys, they're going to be on a lot of double teams. So maybe their job is to take up blockers.
Take up blockers and let those linebackers make plays.
And let them fly around, let the back end. But Isaac Gifford, that's another one. Deshaun Singleton. I mean, there's some material on the back end.
Oh, they're good in the back end, I think.
They've had a strong camp. So if they win this game, I'll say this now, it will be because of what this defense does.
Yeah, okay.
I think the defense,
okay,
if they cause some turnovers, create some problems, and can they win the turnover margin? I mean, you heard Matt Rule say this. The last time Nebraska was positive was 2016.
On the season, yeah. Yeah, on the season. Can they win it? Can they win it in this game? I imagine what you're going to see is both teams play it pretty close to the vest. I don't think you'll see Nebraska get fancy with offensive play calling. Why would you? I mean, I think like I said, I keep saying it. I think they're just going to ask those big men to lean on them, throw a lot of body blows at Minnesota. Hope there's a cumulative effect. And Rule, what I love, there's some things I just love about this man. And one of them is we want to sprint to the finish line in the 4th quarter. I think we're going to see a lot different Nebraska team in the 4th quarter, a team that's built to win the 4th quarter. Fascinating what he said today. I don't care if we're down 17-0. It's a long game because we're going to be coming in the last part of the game.
Yeah, how opposite was it when say you're a reporter and be like, Coach, how important is it to start fast?
Don't start me on. Don't get me started.
I mean, Matt Rule, you could just see that's annoying him. It's like,
it annoys me, so I imagine it annoys him too. What do you?
He wants to start slow.
Yeah, we want to start slow. What he's suggesting is it doesn't matter as much the way he builds a team is because they're going to be strong in the 4th quarter. Yeah. I mean, you always want to start fast. Obviously, it goes without saying. But what he's saying is it's not necessarily this necessity. If like he said today, if they bring one back on a kickoff 80 yards, I'll stand there smiling because I know it's going to be a long game. I like it. I like that mentality a lot. So, yeah, I expect both teams to, especially Nebraska, to play it pretty close to the vest offensively. I don't think you'll see wild stuff, Sean.
So when he also said no fair catches on kickoffs.
Love it. That's another thing.
Okay, my question, though, like if you caught one 6 yards deep, is that one where you'd but he's talking about
at the 12.
The 12,
yeah,
and just take it to the 25.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, don't fair catch at the 7-yard line, the 12-yard line. Just take it. Go.
I mean, the kickoff returns of Nebraska since post Amir Abdullah have been a disaster.
Pretty much a disaster.
I mean, there's been a couple like where JD Spielman snuck one out, and that was it. I mean, it was once again your child crossing a busy street watching Nebraska's kick returns.
Yes and no. Now we got to make sure we get this in here. Emmett Johnson will be one of the kickoff returners, and Ramir Johnson, no relation. They'll be back there. I like that.
Johnson.
Yeah, I do. I like that combination because I know Ramir will stick his nose in there. Like, now I will say this: I'll defend Tommy Hill. Tommy Hill stuck his nose in there. He didn't have a great, average per return, but he would rip into contact. And that's Ramir's going to do that. And I suppose Emmett Johnson will too.
When some of the lack of return too was just the wedge and the block, the execution,
often terrible.
And you have to think they're going to put an emphasis on putting starters on these units.
Well, they are. Yeah. We'll see what that looks like. The punt unit's loaded up with black shirts. All right. We'll see what the kickoff unit looks like.
When you heading up, we're driving separate. We'll be together. But when you heading up?
11 a.m. Wednesday.
So we're heading up right in the morning. So I'll be on the road Wednesday morning.
I can't wait. I really can't wait. These two, I was thinking about this morning. What a compelling 2 games to start the season.
I know next week we'll be in Boulder about this time.
Oh God. Sweet. It is. It's fun. This is fun. This is big. I mean, we're going to see first of all, probably a close game. And think about Nebraska if they could squeeze out 2-0.
They're on Fox both games.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say, Nebraska's brands fit. The hell it's not. The hell it has. They're on Fox TV for the first 2 games of the season.
Yeah. Now let's see a representative team. And again, I'm going to be very patient with Matt Rule, very patient, because I like every message he sends. I love no fair catches and kickoffs. I love that. I love what he's doing in terms of building from the inside out. All of that. I love when he says he doesn't say it a lot, and it's not a lot of public discussion, but you can't rely on the portal. He's going to build this program with high school kids that develop under his watch. All of that just sounds perfect to me. So do you think in my shoes I'm going to be impatient? No. If they go up there and lay an egg at Minnesota, patience. You got to be patient. This is the very opening stages of the Matt Rule era. Granted, he's got some guys. It's not a bad team, but the last thing I think we need in this fan base is to start to get impatient with this guy. Don't do it.
All right. Lots coming up on the site. We will have our tunnel talk. If you're not familiar, that is our exclusive War Room feature for subscribers only. That's going to drop a Wednesday night where Sip, Rob, and I and the crew will give all of our thoughts heading into Thursday. If you're not a member of HuskerOnline.com, we've got a special that runs through the weekend. You can get 50% off your membership to Husker Online for $49.99, or just get your first month for $1. Those are our deals going on right now. We'll have our pregame picks and predictions that will run Thursday. And then a reminder, we'll be live for our postgame show roughly around midnight. It just depends on when the game ends. We don't know how things will kind of play out, but we plan to go 45 minutes plus, maybe an hour. Just depends how we're doing, and it depends if we get kicked out of the press box.
Yeah. Hopefully we won't.
But we're planning on having our postgame show from the box. In fact, I've got my suitcase here to pack up the equipment to take with us to Minneapolis. So looking forward to launching the show. Thanks again to our sponsors here, Bauer Underground, CHI Health, and then Underdog Fantasy, our sponsors here on today's show. Signing off for Sip. We'll see you in Minneapolis. Thanks for joining us on another edition of Husker Online Headlines.